Welcome to the Give a Fuck podcast presented by Spark Consciousness. I am your host, Sarah Woodard. Among other things, I am a certified shamanic practitioner, Reiki master teacher, activist, educator, speaker, and award-winning children's author. I'm also a fierce defender of the underdog, which for me means wildlife, companion and work/farmed animals, Mother Nature, and Gaia herself. I care deeply about my fellow human animals and believe that when we learn to live in harmony with nature, we also learn to live in harmony with ourselves and each other. I'm fearless about doing my own inner work and growth and am passionate about helping create a world where all beings are respected and honored. I have a deep connection to Gaia and feel particularly connected in the presence of the beautiful Colorado Front Range. When I'm not busy working to present information about living in harmony with Mother Nature, I share my time with 3 wonderful cats, enjoy birdwatching, and experiencing all the outdoors has to offer. My life journey to this point has been filled with twists, turns, and changes, as has everyone's. For me, the constants from birth to now are a strong connection to Gaia, a deep-seated need to serve and help create a more compassionate and healthy world, and a love of both learning and sharing my knowledge. Those lifelong constants are what brought me to this point. All of the knowledge I've acquired in the process of learning to live my life in harmony, as well as new information I come across, are the inspiration for and knowledge bombs presented in this podcast. Through connection to nature, I help young millennial women and others feeling lost expand their knowledge, feel connected to the world around them, and live with greater compassion. The purpose of this show is to present new information and or old information in a new way to help you see connections and live in harmony. The name kind of says it all here, folks. Sometimes I also share other resources as I love to help you continue learning. As a quick reminder, the spelling of give a fuck is F*K. And I would like to send a huge thank you to my existing patrons on Patreon. So a quick life update. I have been doing the 52 hike challenge, which is super fun. I'm loving discovering new trails and seeing different views. It's super fun. There's been some cool stuff with the business that I'll share here as well. I started moon gatherings through Spark Consciousness, and ideally they'll be in person in the Denver area with, a small group so we can all support each other. But for right now, since it's cold and I don't have an ideal spot to host them yet, I've been doing them virtually as YouTube Live. So if that is something that's interesting to you, please check that out. I would love to have you join me there. The big thing is this online class that I have been alluding to is finally all ready and all set to go live on March 7th. So if anything that I talk to you about in this podcast resonates at all, I hope that you will sign up for that wait list so you get notified the minute it's live and you can start to make these changes in your life. All right, so now we are going to move on to answers to your questions. So the way this works is that Patreon members can submit a question. Right now, no one has submitted a question, but I did have lunch with a girlfriend and she had 2 really awesome questions. And when I answered them, I was like, these would be great for the show too. So I'm going to slot them in right here. The first one was she did not know what seitan is. And that's a great question. Seitan is actually vegan protein. And so when I say we're moving on to the seitan of the show, I don't want to say we're moving on to the meat of the show because I'm vegan and I don't want to promote even using language that in some way, shape, or form makes other species less than humans. So I call it the seitan. Her second question was, what is Patreon? And that's, I sometimes forget that I talk about it a lot and I'm familiar with it. And I sometimes forget that not everyone knows what it is. So if you're wondering, here's what Patreon is. So back in the day, like Michelangelo time frame, artists like Michelangelo had a patron. They call it a patron of the arts, right? Who paid Michelangelo big dollars so that he could live, but do his art. And so Patreon is like the modern day crowdsourcing version of that. So instead of one person paying $1 bazillion so that I can put out this podcast for you, a bunch of people pay small amounts of money to support the podcast. So that's what it is. And that's what I talk about here. If you are a Patreon member, there are different levels depending on the amount of money that you feel comfortable using to support this effort every single month. And depending on that dollar amount, there are different benefits that you get in exchange. Kind of like with PBS, if you pledge during their pledge weeks, if they still do those, you get different little bonuses for your money when you pledge to like PBS or that type of thing. So hopefully that makes a little more sense now. And if you would like to check that out, the link is always in the show notes. We are going to move on to the seitan of the show, which is just vegan protein. This week, I want to talk about how to create your own spiritual practice. Before we do that, though, we have to talk about what a spiritual practice is and is not. And the reason that this is important is because creating a spiritual practice is an absolutely essential part of finding your purpose and defining your values. It's basically the key to stop feeling so lost. So what a spiritual practice is it's anything that helps you reconnect with your soul. A belief in one's soul is clearly needed. It's also really helpful to have a power greater than oneself. It does not require any religious belief, but at the same time, it fits into any existing religious beliefs that you may have. It also does not require any woo-woo, metaphysical, new age, whatever stuff, crystals, none of that is required. That's a societal stereotype. Now, that's not to say these things can't be helpful. They totally can be, but if you're meant to use those as part of your spiritual process or your spiritual practice, they'll come when they come, and it's not a big deal. What a spiritual practice can look like is hiking, running, meditation and yoga, writing or journaling, creative outlets like drawing or painting, prayer, ritual, and ceremony, singing, sitting in nature, and basically anything else that brings you peace. A spiritual practice is not filled with dogma. It does not preach a specific system of beliefs, and it does not require an institution, organization, building, religious leader, or other people in order to practice it. However, if those bring you spiritual nourishment, you can certainly include them, but they are not required. To create your own spiritual practice, whether or not you are actively involved in a religion, there are 5 really simple steps. The first one is just think about what brings you joy. This may happen a lot. It may not happen very often at all. But either way, there has to be moments when you feel joy or have in your life. Maybe it doesn't even happen that you can remember like in recent memory, but maybe something from childhood even. But think about those. And here's just some examples. Crafting, hiking, singing. I talk a lot about when I was 4 and I would sit in that bush in my front yard that grew in a circle. For me, that was the joy moment that I started with because it was the only thing I could think of. I was a grown-ass adult. The only thing I could think of as a joy moment was sitting in that bush when I was 4 years old. So if that's what you've got, use it. Come up with like 3 to 5 moments if you can. And then step 2 is to dive deeper. So what is it about those moments that bring you joy? Is it the sense of creation? Is it an empowerment feeling? Is it fun? Is it something else? For me, with the bush story, it was just feeling that connection to nature. So figure out what that is. And again, write down as many reasons for each item on your list as you have. Some may have 1, some may have quite a lot. It doesn't matter. There are no right or wrong answers. It's just what's right for you. And then once you've done that, step 3 is it's time to make a decision. All of those reasons you have in step 2. Which ones do you want to have more of in your life? Do you want more personal power? Do you want more fun? Do you want more connection to nature? Whatever that is. Which things on your list already make you feel that way? And then pull those aside. Those are obviously things you're going to want to do more of. And that means you're already well on your way to creating your own spiritual practice. Now that you have those, let's add on to that for step 4. What other things could you do that would bring you that same feeling? Maybe it's something you've wanted to try for a while. Maybe it's something you've done only once. It doesn't matter. And feel free as you're going through this to try some new stuff and go, no, that wasn't for me. It doesn't bring me that feeling I was looking for. That's okay. That's all part of this process of exploring, learning, growing, and becoming your true self. So it's all good. And there is no right or wrong answers. It's about what works for you. And then the last one is step 5. Just make it a habit. The more you do it, the more frequently. If you can do it once a day, awesome. Not everyone can, but the more often you can do it, the more quickly you will start to get back in touch with your soul and define your values, find your purpose, and becoming the person you were meant to be. But also give yourself some grace. Like if you can't do it one day when you had planned to, that's totally okay. Life happens. Just allow yourself some grace and do what you can do when you can do it. Why does this matter? Why does this work? Why is this the key to finding your values and purpose? Here's why. Our soul is that quiet space inside of us that already knows all of the answers. We were born innocent and in touch with that quiet space and knowing all of the answers. But very, very quickly, parents, teachers, society, all of the noise of living gets inside of our heads, inside of our bodies, and silences our soul. It's not intentional. Everyone means well. They're trying to guide you. They're trying to help. They mean well. It's not a blame thing. But unfortunately, with the best of intentions, all of that advice and suggestions and guidance, it silences that soul voice that already knows all of the answers. So working through this process that I just laid out, working through those 5 steps and getting back in touch with your soul, you're getting back in touch with that part of you that you were born with that already knows all the answers you're looking for. But be patient. It can take a while. I mean, here I am, I'm 43. I just really figured it out. I could tell I was getting closer, and every time I got closer, I thought I was there, and I wasn't, and I kept going, and it can take a while. It's okay. There's no timeline for any of this. It's about you, your life, your journey, your process. Now, fair warning, there may be some people in your life who are like, wow, that's not what we want for you. They may get a little judgy. Give them some grace too. Remember, they haven't gone through this process. They may not be doing the work they need to do to get in touch with their soul. So they're still listening to that noise from all of those outside influences. Give them some grace. Sit down, talk to them about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and invite them to join you. You never know. It's never too late to start. With all of that said, I hope this was helpful. If there are questions, concerns, whatever, definitely reach out to me on social media or through my website. I want to move on to wrap up and housekeeping now. So you can find me on social media. I am on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Pinterest, and my username on all of those is Spark Consciousness. You can also find me on my website, which is in the show notes. Actually, the social media is in show notes as well. I would like to encourage you to take a look at that course that I was saying is all set to go. Woohoo! When it does drop on March 7th, you're only going to have 1 week to sign up before doors close until June. So if that's something that you are feeling like, oh yeah, I might want to try that out, be ready. And the best way to be ready is to sign up for the mailing list, because you will get an email the day it drops. So you'll be the first to know. Again, I would like to encourage you to check out the Patreon now that you know what that is. And the way that works, which I kind of explained, but just to restate, when you opt in and stick around, you get some super fun bennies. Everything from submitting a question, which I will answer in that little answer a question segment, to discount codes for offerings, and even merch at some levels. And who doesn't love free merch? You can see all of them on the Patreon page. And as with everything I do, 10% of every dollar from Patreon and everywhere else goes to support charitable causes helping make the world a more compassionate place. And the rest of the Patreon funds go to pay for hosting, other software and equipment if needed, and helping the kitty babies be happy while I ignore them to create each episode for you. If your podcast platform allows, I would really appreciate it if you would take a minute to rate the show. That is actually one of the best ways to support any content creators that you love, because the more ratings we have, the more visibility we get. So in addition to the course dropping and those moon gatherings that I said I've started, I'm also finally able to start looking at the digital magazine that is going to be coming out. The first issue will be in October. And the way this magazine is going to work is it's actually, I want you guys to provide the content, the articles. I yap at you enough on this show and through my blog and on YouTube. I want to hear some other voices. I want to hear from you specifically. Each month has a theme. And so the theme for October is creating change. And what I'm looking for here is personal anecdotes of how you've created change in your life or in your community or anything along those lines. Short, 250 to 1,000 words. And if you would like to submit an article, pop on over to my website. There is some information for how to do that. I believe it's on the resources page. If you can't find it and you want to submit something, just reach out to me either through the website or on Instagram, and I will be more than happy to get you that info. Because like I said, I really want to hear from you guys. I want to know your stories. We all have our own inner wisdom, and I want this magazine to be a place where you get to share your wisdom. I think that is it for the moment. Until I will see you in 2 weeks. Until next time, continue to expand your knowledge, feel the connections, and live with compassion.